Hi there and welcome to Cloud Conversations Demo Time with me, Peter Rising. In this series, I pick a Microsoft 365 technology and I walk you through what it is, what it does, what are the use cases, and a high-level overview of how to use it. In this episode, we're going to focus on a compliance technology in Microsoft Purview, specifically insider risk management. What is insider risk management, I can hear you asking? Well, all too often, security and compliance admins will focus their attention on the external threat, but it's equally important, more so in many cases, to be mindful, to be aware of the risk of the malicious or unwitting insider. These are individuals within your organization who have genuine credentials and who can successfully authenticate to Microsoft 365, to Azure AD, and access your data and process your data. So what are they doing with your data? What could they be doing with your data? Why are they doing what they're doing with your data? Let's take a look. Let's find out as we dive into Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management. So let's start with how we access Insider Risk Management. This is achieved by navigating to the Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal or Compliance Center, whatever you want to call it, by going to https://compliance.microsoft.com. Now, to manage insider risk management and configure the features, you need to have the right permissions. You can be either a global administrator, a compliance administrator, or you can be part of the organization management, insider risk management, or insider risk management admin role groups. To use insider risk management in your Microsoft 365 tenant, you can use a few different subscriptions. It's included in Microsoft 365 E5. You can also use it with Microsoft 365 E3 plus the Microsoft 365 E5 compliance add-on. Again, you can use it with Microsoft 365 E3 plus the Microsoft 365 E5 Insider Risk Management add-on. And finally, there is a combination where you can use it with Office 365 E3 plus Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 plus the Microsoft 365 E5 compliance add-on. So lots of different ways that you can access insider risk management. So once inside insider risk management, we are taken to the overview tab here, and we can see some tabs along the top of the screen here. We'll go through these in turn. I'm just going to close the sidebar here to get us more screen space. And what we see here first are some recommended actions. And we can see that some of these are optional. We don't have to do these. In fact, these are all optional, but we can choose to add allowed and unallowed domains here in relation to insider risk policies and settings. We can choose to exclude types of files from policy matches. We can evaluate user coverage to make sure that policies are covering all of the users that we need. And we can detect activity from priority users. So these are just some of the recommended activity that activities even that are being suggested here to us to take a look at. And as you tick these off, they'll be marked as complete. You can go into the spanner icon here to see all recommended actions. So you can click on that and it'll take you right into the full list of recommended actions for you. So we've got these divided into categories. We've got setup actions. We can see what we've completed already so far. And the first time you run insider risk management, it'll actually prompt you to do this first scan for potential insider risks. Now that first analytical scan can take up to 48 hours to complete, and it shows that here on the time to complete. So you have to be a little bit patient when you run it for the first time. Then you can take some steps to learn about insider risk management, learn about some best practices and common terms and so on and so forth. You can configure the settings that apply to insider risk, features and workflows. You can create your first policy. So there's lots of handy little steps that you can take in relation to the setup actions. You don't have to do this from here, but if you're not quite sure what to do, you get a very, very handy step-by-step guide on how to get you going with this technology. We've got some investigation actions here as well. We can see, again, these have been completed and these are optional steps as opposed to some of these ones here are required. But we can review users whose activity is being scored. We can review alerts. We can investigate a case. Lots of things that we can do. We can detect relevant activity, such as adding those allowed or unallowed domains, and evaluate user coverage. Things that were included on that first screen when we first went in. So that's a great way to get you started if you really don't know where to begin and you're not entirely sure where to go. Now, as I record this, for some reason I'm getting this client error, but it seems to be a bit of a glitch, and if I OK that, it is just going away and the tool is functioning as normal, so I can disregard that. On our overview page, we can see here we've got some alerts for us to review. We can see I've got some low risk alerts here, 4 of them in total, matching a data leaks policy that I have created. The user information there is anonymized. We will show you how that is configured in a few moments. We can manage all of the alerts from here. We can click to go in and manage all of those alerts. So this is a bird's eye view, this overview page, an executive view, if you like, of what's going on with the insider risk management settings and activities in your organization. So active cases, policies with most activity, users, insider risk analytics, and user activity reports. So lots of good stuff there. Now, before I go any further, before I get into any of these individual tabs, I'm going to take a look at the insider risk settings. This is a good place to really start, to be sure that you've got insider risk management configured exactly the way you need it for your organization and your unique needs. We've already looked at the recommended actions. What's new? We'll just take you to a list of new and upcoming features. So always worth checking on that and keeping up to date with it. But we're going to take a look at the insider risk settings here. These are the broad settings for insider risk management in Microsoft Purview. Now, the first thing we can see is privacy. And here is where you can see that we have the anonymized versions of usernames selected here for privacy purposes. So this is very important. So for users who perform activities matching your insider risk policies, we have the decision here whether we want to show their actual names or anonymize them to mask their identities. So we have that choice that can show anonymized or the actual username. Next, we have policy indicators. Now, these are the indicators that are going to be tied to your policies. Policy templates define the type of risk activities that you want to detect and investigate. And each template is based on these indicators. And these will trigger alerts when users perform related activities. So you can choose one or more of these indicators to include in your policy template. So we have Office indicators here, and I've selected all of these here. And example of some of the indicators that we have here are sharing SharePoint sites with people outside the organization, adding people inside the organization to priority SharePoint sites, downgrading sensitivity labels applied to SharePoint sites. Lots of good stuff that we can apply here in terms of indicators, and downloading content from Teams. So all very, very worthwhile having. The next section we have is device indicators. Now here we can have indicators related to our devices in Microsoft 365. You'll note here that these are grayed out, and this is because in this particular tenant I've not onboarded any devices into Microsoft Purview. So that's a step that you would need to do in order to get these indicators available to you. And you could get guidance on how to do that there. We'll not do that for the purposes of this demonstration. And similar thing here for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint indicators. This is a preview feature as well. I always caution preview features. Think very carefully before you activate them, because they can change. Microsoft can withdraw them. They can be in preview for a very long time. If you activate a preview feature, you are taking a little bit of a risk. But again, to use these indicators, and it's telling us here a nice yellow alert, you've got to have Microsoft Defender for Endpoint subscription, and alert sharing must be turned on in order for these to be ungrayed. And then again, we've got to onboard devices here to get these risky browsing indicators. So it's going to look at browse to malware websites and keylogger websites and phishing, cult, all that sort of stuff. So very, very good device indicators that we can add here, as long as we onboard our devices to enable us to collect those indicators. Then there's physical access indicators. So you can select, well, there's only one here, so you can select all, but it'll just do the same thing. So physical access after termination or or failed access to a sensitive asset. And then Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps indicators. So this links to the sort of policies that you can create within Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Another great example of how there's this tight integration across solutions in Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Defender. And you get this a lot throughout all of the great security, compliance, and identity products that are available with Microsoft 365. So we can select things like unusual mass downloading of content from a connected cloud app, mass sharing of content, suspicious admin activities observed in the connected cloud app, and so on and so forth. Got some health record access indicators here. We have cumulative exfiltration detection. We've got risk score boosters. So there is a lot of indicators that we can tailor to our needs here across our Office solutions and devices and much more. The next item is policy timeframes. Now, this is important. You can choose here to the timeframes that you choose here will go into effect for a user when they trigger a match for an insider risk policy. So, for example, as it's saying here, if you set an activation window here to 15 days and past activity detection to 30 days, and then a user triggers a policy match on July the 1st, then that policy will retrieve user activity from 30 days ago. So that would be June the 1st in this example. And it would continue to record new activity for 15 more days up to July the 16th. So here we can just toggle what the activation window settings are. We can easily move these sliders up and down and save them as we need to. Next, we have intelligent detections. So here we can define how the detection of risk activities are processed for insider risk alerts. So file activity detection, this helps to ensure your policies detect file-related activity that is most relevant to your organization. So the first thing we have here is the option to add file type exclusions. So you can filter by .jpg, and alerts won't be generated for any activities that includes those type of files. We can set here the minimum number of daily events to boost the score for unusual activity. So here we've got it set to 55 or more events. So what this does, it'll let you know how many daily events are required to boost the risk score for activity that's considered unusual for a user. Alert volume, here we can select the default volume or slide it to where you want for user activities detected by your policies assigned a specific risk score. So this in turn will determine the alert severity, whether it's low, medium or high. So by default, Microsoft will generate a certain amount of low, medium and high severity alerts, but here you can increase or decrease the volume depending on your needs. Then we've got some Microsoft Defender for Endpoint alert statuses. So again, the insider risk policy templates that detect security violations will use security alerts from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to prioritize related activity. So depending on the user activity you want to investigate, you can choose to generate security violation alerts based on the investigation status. And to select an alert status here, you must first select at least one Microsoft Defender for Endpoint indicator from the policy indicators where we were previously in this section above. So we've not got those activated at the moment, so these ones are grayed out. We have the ability here to configure domains, unallowed domains we can add, and the domains that you add here will map to indicators involving sharing content with someone, such as sending an email to someone with a gmail.com address, for example, and to the indicator that detects when users download content to a device from one of these unallowed domains. So when detected, the related activity will be assigned a higher risk score. So lots of controls we can put in here in relation to domains. And we can do the reverse. We can explicitly define allowed domains as well, and third-party domains. And finally, or not finally actually, there's more, we can add file path exclusions. So file paths here map to device indicators related to copying or moving files, such as moving files to a system folder or network share path. And activity involving these file paths will be ignored by the policies and won't generate alerts. In fact, there's a lot more. Sensitive information type, or SITs exclusions, again a preview feature, but here we can add a or edit sensitive information types that we want to exclude. So sensitive information types would be things like credit card numbers or medical or financial information. And as I'm sure you probably will know, and you can see from previous videos that I've done on Microsoft Purview, there are many baked in to Microsoft Purview, and you can add your own custom sensitive information types as well. Default sensitive information type exclusions. So if we expand this one down, we can see that these sensitive info types are automatically excluded because they often result in false positive matches. So Microsoft's done some work for us here because they've had some issues with these particular sensitive information types in International Classification of Diseases specifically. So these are going to be excluded by default, but you can untick those. We can do the same for trainable classifiers, again, in Purview. So again, add or edit trainable classifiers that you want to exclude. And there's some default ones that are excluded, such as threat, profanity, targeted harassment, and so on. Site exclusions, we can add or edit sites to exclude, and we can use keyword exclusion as well to exclude keywords or exclude the above keywords only if particular terms are also not present. So a lot you can do within this intelligent detection section here within Insider Risk Management. Very powerful. Export alerts. If you're not using Microsoft Purview as your primary compliance solution, we have the ability to use Office 365 Management Activity APIs to export the alert details to make them available for third-party tools. So that's very, very handy to know as well if you're not using 365 Microsoft Purview. We can define priority user groups here as well. We can set up priority user groups to define users in the organization whose activity requires closer inspection based on factors such as their position, their level of access to sensitive information, or their risk history. And once created, these groups can be included in certain policy templates that are more likely to generate high severity alerts. So any of these things that you do, very straightforward, the usual type of creation wizard that you go through, as you can see. We'll not go into the weeds of these just yet. Priority physical assets. So this is a preview feature, so we can add priority physical assets here, and these will represent priority locations in your organization. So these could be things like company buildings or server rooms. And to detect activity for these assets, related policy templates require that a physical badging connector is set up to import access events for those assets. So when adding, we can put in an asset ID here and move through the process of adding priority physical asset IDs. Again, just be wary of that brackets preview there. The same for Power Automate flows as well. That's a preview feature, but we can use Power Automate flows to automatically manage Insider Risk Management processes and tasks. So you can create flows based on templates here that you can choose from. Built-in Insider Risk Management templates, or use Power Automate console to create custom flows. So you can choose from cloud flows or desktop flows or flows that are already shared with you. And there are a few you can select from here, such as notify manager of insider risk alerts for a user, notify users when they are added to an insider risk policy, request info from HR or business about a user in an insider risk case, or create a record for insider risk case in ServiceNow. So there's a few built in there that you can use. Another preview feature that we have, Microsoft Teams. You can integrate with Microsoft Teams to make the capabilities with insider risk case management to enhance collaboration with stakeholders. So every time a case is created, an associated team will be created as well. Admins will also have the option to create a team for any existing cases. And by default, teams will automatically include members who are assigned the insider risk management analysts, and insider risk management investigators role groups. Additional contributors can be added to the team after it's created as needed. So again, we can toggle that on and off as required. Analytics. So this is what it does when you first go into Insider Risk Management. And this is the scan that it runs, and the first one will take up to 48 hours. So you can turn this on and off, but when turned on, Microsoft will automatically scan sources in your organization, such as the audit log, to detect the same activities used by insider risk policies. Scans will run daily, and you'll be able to review anonymized results to identify potential risks and determine which policies you need to set up. We've got some admin notification settings here, so we've got a lot of granular choices on how we want our notifications to be configured. We can decide whether to send email notifications and which admins will receive them. We can send the notification email when the first alert is generated for a new policy and choose the role groups that you want to include. We can go down the list and we can choose to send a daily email when new high severity alerts are generated. We can send a weekly email summarizing policies that have unresolved warnings. We can send an email when an analytics scan detects an insight for the first time and when analytics is turned off for your organizations. The last item we have on our settings menu is enable inline alert customization for all alert reviewers. So we can allow the following assigned roles to make policy edits using inline alert customization. And these roles are Insider Risk Management Analyst and Insider Risk Management Investigator. And important note that the changes will take approximately 1 hour to take effect, so we can turn this feature on or off so that when these roles can review alerts, they have the ability to make inline alert customization as they go about reviewing those alerts. So once you're happy with all these, you can save them, you can come back and change them as you need to later. If you're testing out insider risk management with a pilot or proof of concept, you can tweak these until you get them how you need them to be for your organization. But a lot of powerful stuff in there, and I encourage anyone using this product to go into the settings first and foremost to get those right, and that will set you in good stead to get you started with your insider risk management policy creation, which is what we'll look at next. We'll just get rid of that client error again. Just before we take a look at the policies though, I want to quickly show you the insider risk audit log. That's the last item on this top menu that we haven't looked at yet. So if we click onto that, we can review activity in this log to help us stay informed about the actions that have been taken on the insider risk features, what we've been doing. And you can see here that some of the actions that I've taken in the previous section that we did, for example, I turned on Microsoft Teams in insider risk settings. So that's telling me that that was done by me in the category of settings at this particular date and time. So we can scroll through this and we can see all these activities, added indicator to new policy, the data leaks policy. There's lots of good information here. And if we select these, we can get a few more bits and pieces of detail that tells you what's been done there. So very, very handy log that you can refer to. You can customize this by columns, you can export it out, and you can filter as needed. So very, very handy indeed, the insider risk audit log. But now, finally, let's get to the good stuff. Let's take a look at policies. So if we click on the policies tab, we can see the policies that we already have in place. We've got 2 here at the moment. We've got data theft by departing users. We can see we have one warning in there that we'll need to check into. Users in scope, there are no users in scope, but there are some active alerts, and we can see the policy alert effectiveness and so on and so forth. There's the data leaks policy as our other one there. That one's looking a bit better, it's looking healthy, although there is 1 user in the scope for that. There are some active alerts, so we can take a look at those a bit further down the line when we come to look at alerts. But for now, let's just show you the process of creating a policy. And it's fairly straightforward. We go into the Create Policy wizard here, and we can choose a template that we want to work from. Now, we've already got a couple in place. We've got our data theft by departing users, and we've got our data leaks policy. And there's categories here. Again, you can choose by data theft, by data leaks. You can choose from security policy violations. This is a preview feature. And health record misuse, also a preview feature. And again, final preview feature, risky browser usage. And if you click on each, it's going to show you all of the prerequisites that you need to put these in place. And there'll be quite a few prerequisites in many of these policy templates, because it's reliant in many cases on having your devices onboarded to detect activity on those devices. So that's a step that you need to take first. Microsoft Purview extensions on Edge browser need to be deployed as well on this particular one for the risky browser usage. So if we go back and look at some of the ones we've already put in place, there are options in this data theft by departing user one, for example, where you could add in a connection to your HR system, an HR data connector. So this, if you did this, that would be configured to periodically import resignation and termination date details for your organization. So, and it's giving you links here on what steps you need to do to set up an HR data connector. It takes you right into Microsoft Learn and shows you the steps you need to take to do that. So that's really getting into the advanced setup of insider risk management by integrating with HR systems, which, let's face it, a lot of organizations are going to want to do that. So this is something that it's important to be aware of, and difficult thing to test. I honestly don't know how I would go about testing that, but it's something that's going to come up for sure. Devices onboarded, that's an easier one to work through and get in place, because you can onboard our devices into Purview and make them available. Physical badging connector, this is an option that you can put in place as well to periodically import access events to your priority physical locations. So identity cards being used to check into locations. And again, it's going to take to detailed instructions on this optional step for configuring that physical badging connector, what you need to do to start that process. Then it's telling us what is the triggering event going to be for this particular insider risk policy. Well, there are two triggers here. One relates to that HR data connector, that will be triggered when that connector imports termination or resignation dates for a user. And the other one is more vanilla. It's when a user account is deleted from Azure AD. And this is something that I did previously for the policies that I already have set up. I deleted a user account and it worked accordingly. Activities detected by the policy will include downloading files from SharePoint, printing files, and copying data to personal cloud storage services. So these are all things that a malicious insider might try to do in their notice period, or just prior to their notice period. If they are leaving the business, they might try and take some of your intellectual property in order to gain a competitive advantage in their next role, which is not a nice thing to do, but unfortunately this is the sort of thing that happens. So this is what this policy is going to do. So as we go through, we can give our policy a name, and we'll just go through the wizard, but we'll not complete it because we've already got one for this policy. So always put in a detailed name and description so you know exactly what this policy is going to do. Then we can choose the users and groups within the organization that you want the policy to apply to. So you include all users and groups, or you can go granular and include specific users and groups. We'll leave this one as it is at the moment. And here we can choose about prioritizing content. Now, this is always a good thing to do to help you to get the content that you want to target the most. So definitely recommend prioritizing content, and you can choose where you want to focus that on, whether it's SharePoint sites or sensitivity labels or sensitive info types, file extensions, or trainable classifiers. You can choose not to prioritize the content right now as well. Next, what are our triggering events going to be? Now, our triggering events, as we saw in the details earlier on in the policy, there are two. HR data connector is triggered, or a user account is deleted from Azure AD. We can't select the HR data connector because we don't have one, so that's grayed out. So we'll proceed on. And now we can see the indicators that are available to us, divided into the categories of office indicators. 26 out of 26 are included. Device indicators, 0 out of 15 because we've not got devices onboarded. Same with physical badging indicators, and we've not integrated with Defender for Cloud Apps either. If you drill down, you can see what these indicators are, and you can make changes to those as needed. So we'll leave those as they are, but you can see how you can select those as needed. The detection options available to you is next. There's a couple of subcategories within the indicators section, and these are advanced detection options are used to generate alerts for the activity that is being detected. So then we have sequence detection. A sequence is a group of 2 or more activities performed one after the other over a period of 7 days that might suggest an elevated risk. Specific indicators are used to detect each step in a sequence, which are organized into 4 main types of activity, which are download, exfiltrate, obfuscate, and delete. I'm so glad I was able to say obfuscate. I didn't say it very well the second time. I jinxed it. Okay, so we got this little yellow block here warning us that some sequences require specific indicators to be turned on in settings before they can be selected below. So we can see some of them are grayed out. So you have this option to turn on indicators here. Choose the indicators that you can turn on, but what you can choose is obviously dependent on certain criteria. So we'll leave that as it is for now. But here we have the options selected for download and then exfiltrate. And if you hover over here, you can get some more information about what's going on here. So the indicators are downloading files from SharePoint or Teams, and the exfiltrate indicators, and there's sequence examples. So a user downloads a file from SharePoint and then emails it as an attachment to someone outside your organization. So lots of choices we can put into play here. Downgrade or remove a label, then exfiltrate, and so on and so forth. Then we've got cumulative exfiltration detection, which detects the number of exfiltration activities that a user performs over a certain time, and it makes see the normal amount performed by users in your organization over the past 30 days. So as an example, if a user shared more files than most users over the past month. So we can select all here. Well, there's only one to select there. So detect when a user's exfiltration activities are exceeding the norms. And then we've got some risk score booster settings as well, which again, there's only one to choose here. Activity is above the user's usual activity for that day. Indicator thresholds. Now, this is something that I would recommend having a look at the custom thresholds. You can use the defaults. What this is going to do is that each indicator you select uses thresholds that influence the an activity risk score, which in turn will determine whether an alert's severity is going to be low, medium, or high. And the threshold is based on the number of events recorded for an activity per day. So if we go to customize those thresholds, here you can see that we can tailor these based on categories. So sharing SharePoint files with people outside the organization. 10 to 20 events per day will generate low severity alerts. 20 to 30, medium. 30 onwards generates the high severity alerts, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. Downloading content from SharePoint as well. So this is an area that is definitely worth a look at to see what you want your settings to be for these thresholds, and there are lots of different categories to look at. Okay, so we go next, and then we can see that we have our review screen. We can review and make any final changes to our policy. It's giving us some recommendations before we finish and submit. It's suggesting very, very strongly that we add priority content, which is a good thing to do, definitely. I've just, for the sake of demonstration, not included that. But that's as easy as it is to set up a policy, and I will just cancel that, as I don't want to go ahead and create another one in this environment because I have 2 good examples already in place. So when you create that policy, it's going to take a while to start getting results. You may have to wait 24 or so hours before you get any results hitting, and you're seeing things like users in scope or active alerts and so on and so forth. I certainly had to be patient when I set these policies up a few weeks before I record this video. I was sat there refreshing, and come on, when's this going to kick in? But it took some time. But that's the policies, and if you go into them from here, you can actually go in and edit the policy. If you need to, have a look at the policy health, look at the policy settings, and look at the user coverage and all that good stuff. Amazing. So with that in mind, that's our policies. Next, let's take a little look at alerts. And if we go to the alerts tab, we can see that we have the total alerts that need reviewing, divided into high, medium, and low risk categories. We have got 4 low risk in here, and we can go down and see what these alerts are. A reminder that we're going to see anonymized user information here in this case, but you can change that if that's in line with your organizational needs. We can see the status. It needs to be reviewed. The alert severity is tagged there. It's low. The time detected. Is there a case associated with it? There's no case. We'll get to cases in a minute. We can create cases based on alerts. And what are the risk factors involved? So if we take a look at this particular alert here from 10 days ago, we can go into that alert, and we're going to get a ton of data based on that alert. So this takes us actually into the data leaks policy alerts, and it's going to tell us a lot of detail about what's going on. The activity that's generated for this alert, data exfiltration, files downloaded from SharePoint, 25 out of 100 low severity on that date, and there are 8 events, files downloaded. So all risk factors for this user's activity, we can see the exfiltration activities there. We get lots of little tabs here which we can review. We can see the cumulative exfiltration activities, the sequences, if there are any, unusual activity for the user, priority content, unallowed domains. We're not getting an awful lot of content in here because in a demo environment it's hard to generate really consistent information. But we've got some exfiltration activities here, and if we click on, we can view all of that exfiltration activity. So we've got some options here. This takes you into almost like an e-discovery type review, where you can see exactly what that activity has been. We can see that we're in that Activity Explorer view here, and it's being sorted by files downloaded from SharePoint and what the triggering event was, the exfiltration activity detected. And here we can see what's going on. A file downloaded from SharePoint Online. What's the file name, the site URL, any other relevant information on these tabs here. If it related to a sensitive information type, a sensitivity label, or for a site or a file. So we can look at each individual one. We can see more detail about the item. In this case, it's a video file for a recording that I did, and I placed in that site, and then I exfiltrated it deliberately to generate this alert, just to see that this was working as intended. So very, very powerful stuff indeed, and we can export this detail, and we can take some actions up at the top here to remediate as required. So we're in Activity Explorer there. If we want to filter this by user activity, we can do so. So we can view that from a user perspective rather than Activity Explorer, and we get this user activity scatter plot over a 1 month, 3 month, 6 months period, and we can see on this chart, the triggering event, exfiltration activity that has been detected. So there we go. And we have some forensic evidence options here, a preview feature, but let's take a quick look at that. And are we still loading, or have we just not got anything? No, we don't have anything in there. No data available, so there's nothing relevant to this section, but here we would review forensic evidence clips of activity in this alert that were captured from the user's devices. So it's a very new feature, but one I think that could be potentially very powerful and very useful. So with all that in mind, you've been into the policy alerts and you've assessed what they are, and now you need to take some action. So we have the choice to dismiss the alert if we're comfortable with it, or we can confirm all the alerts and create a case. And this is where cases come into play. So let's do that. We'll confirm all the alerts for this user and create an insider risk case. And it's telling us this alert and any other active alerts for this user will be added to a case. The status for those alerts will change to confirmed, and the action, importantly, cannot be undone. We give it a case name, so I'll inventively call it case 1. This is going to be visible to others with access to insider risk management, an important fact to point out. We're going to add some comments here optionally to appear in the case notes. So I'll just put in important comment, again, very inventive, and I'll go ahead and create my case. So there we go. We are creating, and we'll just give that a few seconds to do so. I'm sure as we're waiting for this case to be created, you can already see the massive potential of this tool and how it's going to be applicable to not just highly regulated organizations or things like that, but all organizations. This could, in my opinion, certainly benefit from this technology in some way, shape or form. So there we go. Our case is created. So what are our next steps? We can actually manage the case from the Cases tab. Our next steps would be to open the case, to investigate and take actions. We can view a list of active and closed cases. We've got some Microsoft Team detail here, and learn more. So let's just click on Done, and we'll come back out of this alert, the data leaks policy, and we can see now things have changed. We've got 75% of alerts still need reviewing, but now this particular alert that we looked in, we've got a status change. We've got a status is confirmed. We've got a case name now, case 1. The case status is active. So we need to go and take a look at that, and we can do that, surprise, surprise, from the Cases tab. So here we are, we've now got our case, and cases are color-coded by active or closed. We have one open case, which is active. And we get some visuals here about cases over the past 30 days and some statistics on the average time cases are active. So what can we do with a case? Let's take a little look. If we open up our case, we can go in and we get a bit more detail within here about the case. We've got our case information and status. We've got our user details, the user's risk score, the anonymized email. We can view all those details. We can see the alerts that this matched to, and then we can see the content detected and what is going to be relevant to it. So this doesn't match labels or sensitive information types or classifiers. The keywords detected, we have a keyword of recording in there, and the number of instances is 8. We have 8 with SharePoint sites. So it's the SharePoint sites that have generated this activity, and we can go on and we can see exactly what's going on. And that takes us back essentially to that same detail that we saw earlier in the actual alert. But we get some more options here now within the case. We can go into the Content Explorer and examine the emails and files captured by the policies included in this case. So here we go, it's loading the content, and it usually takes about an hour for items to appear here, but it might be longer depending on how many items are relevant. And you can refresh the page to see the progress. So let's give that a go. Let's see if we're getting a percentage increase as we wait. Waiting. Let's collapse that little side panel again. And that's going to go very slowly. So, but if you're familiar with Content Explorer, you'll start seeing those items, and you can see the actual detail of the content. You can see exactly what it is and all that good stuff. We can make some case notes. So we can go in and we can add a case note here and record that for the case. So I'll just put in again, important note. You can save that, and we've got our notes there, so you can create your own timeline of notes relevant to this case. We can go into contributors. We can add people to this case. So I'm a member of this case, Insider Risk Management and Insider Risk Management Investigators role groups are able to view this case. We can add contributors in by username here. So that is an option that we have to add them into the case. We can copy the case link and paste that into a message to those who are being added as contributors. So this is absolutely fantastic. Very, very powerful stuff to add contributors into these cases. We've got some case actions here that we can take as well. Lots of stuff we can do here. We can send an email notice about our case. And here is where you can choose a notice template. Now, notice templates is not something we've talked about yet, but a very important part of Insider Risk Management, and also communication compliance, which I will cover in another video very, very shortly. But notice templates are templates that you can use for the email that you're going to send out to those who are relevant to the case, usually the offending person, if it is an offence, for lack of a better word. But you can see I've got one notice template set up here, which I actually created in relation to communication compliance, which will warn of an offensive email or Teams content. So you can select that, you can send it from whoever you want to send it from, you can copy in whoever you need, you can blind copy, and the subject and message body is completed for you based on the template that you create. So the subject is, you violated the email Teams acceptable use policy. And the message body, they're going to get a warning here. This is to inform you that we detected you have misused the messaging tool. So more relevant to communication compliance. We can go ahead and create a notice template actually that will be relevant to Insider Risk Management in a moment. I can show you how you do that. But this is brilliant. So you can send notices. You can escalate the case for investigation. If you click to escalate, you can put in the name or search from your saved info. So it's going to tell us who the custodian is of this particular case and the source, and add a note there, and we can send that on to escalate it to another party. We can do some automation tasks. We can manage some Power Automate flows here. So if we click onto the Power Automate flows, we get access to some templates that we might want to use. Notify a manager of insider risk alerts for a particular user, request info from HR, create a record in ServiceNow, and you can do your own Power Automate flows as well. We can share the case via email or copy the link. We can view the Microsoft team. So it's going to create a team for us based on creating this case as well. So if we click on to view the Microsoft team, it's going to take us into Teams, and I don't want to do that. I want to use the web app instead. And it opened my actual team, so I'll just close that again. And And in a moment, we shall see the team that has been created for us by this case. And anyone who's a member of the case or has been added as a member is going to get access to that team to be able to collaborate about it. So where are we? General. Case 1, there we go. Case 1, as you can see. So we'll close. Nice and simple. Manage pseudonymize. That is a difficult word to say. So let's take a look at this. Pseudonymize is on or off, and that presumably relates to the anonymization in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't give you an awful lot of information there about that, but something I maybe need to come back to and follow up on. And we have, just to learn more there as well. So lots of case actions we can take. We can collaborate in all sorts of ways in teams and power automate flows and notice templates. And when we're at the end of the process, we can go ahead and resolve the case when we're happy that it's been resolved satisfactorily. So, there we go. We've talked about alerts. We've understood cases. We know all about policies. We've had a look at the preview features of forensic evidence. We've not actually looked in this in any depth, but we can have a very, very quick look at this preview feature. So this is the dashboard to review the status of devices in your org that are currently configured to capture user activity. So there are some forensic evidence policy options here. You can create policies for forensic evidence. And these policies define the scopes of the user activity to capture. So these look like they're going to be very, very powerful actually. So if we go into this, we can choose the scope, we can do specific activities or all activities. We need to have this Microsoft Purview client installed on your user devices. So we can give a name and description, and then a device activities, choose the device activities to capture. But we need to turn on the indicators here in order to be able to do that. But device activities to capture would be things like printing files or creating or copying files to USB, the usual sort of stuff that relate to devices. So that's going to be a very, very powerful feature of insider risk management. We can see here we've got pending requests to capture activity on user devices. So if we had any, we could take action on that. We've got some user management activity here for approved users, notification templates, which we can create for forensic evidence, device health, client installation, and forensic evidence settings, some general settings for that. So I'll not delve too deeply into that because that's quite new and in preview. So we'll move on from that and maybe come back to that on another video at some point. But notice templates. Let's take a look at the notice templates. This is what I was alluding to when we were looking at our case a few moments ago. So we can see we've got this notice template in place to warn of offensive email or Teams content. If I go into there, we can see what that consists of, a subject and a message body. We can edit that if we want to, but we can also go ahead and create a new notice template here. So we can call this one data theft policy warning. And we can choose to send it from whoever you want to send it from, copy and blind copy people in, put in your subject, your message body. Nice and simple. So these are very, very simple templates to create, which you can then associate with cases and trigger messaging to the relevant parties in conjunction with a insider risk management case. Very, very straightforward, very, very simple. I think the last thing we haven't actually looked on here is users. So you can look at the users tab here and see the users who are affected by insider risk management. We can see the anonymized data, we can look at the active alerts for the users, the confirmed violations, if it relates to a case and what policy it relates to. And that, folks, is about it for insider risk management, a very, very powerful tool within Microsoft Purview. Absolutely brilliant. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's going to be something that's going to be very popular with a lot of organizations and very important for protecting data, which, let's face it, is what it all comes down to. Those malicious actors out there, they ultimately want to get at your data, whether they be outside your organization or from within. Important to be aware of. I can't emphasize that enough. So thank you so much for your time and patience when watching this video. I've enjoyed making it. There will be more to come very, very soon from Cloud Conversations demos. Look out for a follow-up to this video on the subject of communication compliance, which is part of the wider insider risk suite of products within Microsoft Purview. And I will see you down the road very, very soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.